Travel, we're live. You coming in? You hearing us? Um, Today, I want to go through. I want to do a little spiel about how to manage teams for success, and I want to go through that in a bit of detail, really just quick. But before I do, obviously, I want to be conscious that obviously not everybody will really know who I am. So, who the bloody hell am I? Would probably be a person starting point. So just quickly, a bit of background around me personally. Um, my name's Mike, like I've already just said. And my background really comes from, I think, back in 2015. So, what's that, about 7 years ago? I went through two life changing, life altering events for me personally. Um, and the first one of that was around at the same time I was going through a relationship breakdown. Went a bit Australian there. I went through a relationship breakdown back in 2015. And the important part about that was the impact it was having on me, the impact it was having on my young kids at the time. So my two kids were probably roughly around about 6 and 1 when that actually happened. So really, really young. I was really concerned about that at the time. Huge amount of pressure, court, everything going with that. And at the same time, exactly the same time, I was traveling to a job in London to work for someone who I just couldn't stand working for. Became the epitome of what we now call the management zombie. I was going to work doing a bitch of a commute. It was about 4 hours a day I was spending commuting, doing 2 trains, a bus, and walking. And all to get to a job that I didn't like in a business I didn't want to be at for a person that I couldn't stand working for. And it was really, really demoralizing. And at the same time, those two kind of issues really made me really, really depressed. So during that time, I think it was roughly around about the summer, autumn of 2015, I did go through depression. And that was a really, really difficult time for me. But it's like they say, sometimes in your deepest kind of moments, you come out to probably your biggest kind of triumphs, kind of born out of those challenges that you have in your life. And that was certainly the case for me. So for example, for me, it came to the point that I thought there's got to be a better way of doing this. There's got to be a better way of moving forward. And, people all over the place, 80% of the UK workforce is actively disengaged. That means that for you as an employer right now, the likelihood is that the majority of the people working for you don't want to be there. They don't want to be working for you. They're disengaged from your workplace. They're turning up as a shell of a person, doing the monotony of the general daily tasks, but not really achieving much. And there's got to be a better way of that, because that's exactly where I was back in 2015. I was that disengaged person for multiple reasons, yes, but I was massively disengaged, and I was the epitome of what we now call the wrong person in the wrong role in the wrong business. I was the wrong person to be in that role in that business. I was disengaged. I wasn't there, and for me, obviously, the flip side to that was the importance of my family. So going through what I went through, kind of wakes you up to that kind of realization that you kind of, a lot of fathers out there, if you've not been through this, you kind of go through taking things for granted. And you take for granted that you're always going to be able to see your kids. You're always going to be able to put them to bed. You're always going to be able to give them a hug. They're just down the corridor to they're not down the corridor. You don't see them anywhere as frequently as you would like and you'd want to be. And that's a huge challenge. And I wanted to put those two things together. And that's where we came to with Cavill. It's building more of a family role within your businesses, having people having a sense of belonging. That's a human trait to want to be there. And that's part of what you need to take on board with your teams. So when we're talking about how to manage teams for success, the very embryonic starting point, I mean, it's not even on my list today, so call this one like a bonus. But for me, one of the key parts to that is actually to get people to have a sense of belonging, to build an infrastructure, a culture that people actually want to belong to, that they actually believe in what you're doing, that people are actually on board there for that mission. They know what the mission is. And that's part and parcel of the really big part of that. And that really brings me on to our first point. So the first point about how to manage your teams for success. which is an important part. We all want success, right? Right? I think we do. But in terms of that, what we're looking to do is we're looking to actually set monster goals. So your business should right now have a monster goal for this year, for the next 5 years, and for the next 10 years. And we really want to sing that from the rooftops internally. We want to tell our people where we envisage going. You've brought them on, they're in the car. Now they need to know what they're in the car to do and where they're going and how they can contribute to make that a situation that's going to happen. How do I get us to move from A to B? I have a part to play in that. And that's a real obstacle that a lot of businesses don't tackle. A lot of businesses just simply don't tell their staff what the journey is. What is it you're coming in to achieve? You're coming in, you're making a widget, you're picking up a phone and talking to a client, you're doing something, whatever it is. But what's the end result? What's it looking to achieve? Where are we looking to get to with this? And too often, businesses don't tell their staff that. There's no sense of direction. There's no vision. They know what the job is. They know what the job description is, and it's just the basic mundane thing. But how do you get out of the monotony of, I've got to come in, X, Y, and Z, go home, come in, X, Y, and Z, go home? How do you get out of that monotony? How do you give them some sense of purpose for what they're doing? I can't think of anything worse than going into a business to do your 9 till 5 on the treadmill with no sense of where you're going. Literally, the treadmill, just going round and round. You're moving nowhere. And at least you can have a buy-in to this. People can buy in. They can have that sense of belonging to something because they can see you're actually moving to something. They can see that there's a purpose to what they're doing. If I do X, Y, and Z, it's not just that I'm doing X, Y, and Z. I'm helping everybody around me to kind of reach what I want them to reach. Just realize I just did a lasso kind of a thing there. But it's a really important thing, and we don't tell our staff often enough. And the first part of this is then, once you've got that in place, is you've got to link your teams. You've got to link your individuals and your teams back to those monster goals. So you've got to work your way back. At the end of 2022, in an ideal world, all things being fantastic, terrific, your highest wonderful possible dreams, what does it look like? And then work your way back. What are the steps we've got to take to get there? Because it doesn't just happen. It doesn't just you wake up and boom, we're here. It takes time. It takes work. It takes energy. It's going to take a lot more energy and a lot more time you're even thinking about right now. So you need to 10x what you're thinking about. You need to increase your levels of thought. Your levels of your goal need to be big. But you need to think, how do we work our way there? So starting now, we're in February right now, 2022, just dating this video slightly, but you've got the rest of this year to go still. And if you haven't already, what is it? What's the embryonic stage? Where does day one start? What's ground zero look like? And what's the first thing you've got to do to put this stuff together? And your teams have got to do to put their stuff together, and your individuals in those teams have got to do to put their stuff together. You've got to link the targets of your individuals back to the targets and goals of that team, and back to the targets and goals of that department or the business, whichever the case may be. And you've got to be able to vocalize that. You've got to be able to tell people what it is, and you've got to talk about it all the time. And you need to come back and you need to let them how we're doing, how we're getting forward, how we're moving forward, what the obstacles have been, what the concerns have been, what the challenges are going ahead. You've got to keep them on board. You've got to be transparent in that approach. So that's point number one. Point number one is you need to link your individuals and your teams to the goals and the objectives of your teams and the business itself. And you've got to be vocal about what they actually are. The second part is, in terms of, we're talking about how to manage, just if you're coming in right now, we're talking about how to manage teams for success. So the second part of managing your teams for success is you need to measure based on more than just the targets themselves. Yep, that's right. I've just said that. I've put it out there. Think about it. Let it marinate. We're not just measuring on the target. We've got these monster goals. Your team have got this massive challenge in targets. And then you've got these targets for the individual to stretch. The whole purpose of setting monster targets is to stretch people, to grow them, to take them out of their comfort zone. But what I'm saying is that's not everything you should be measuring people against. In fact, I'd even go further than that and say that if your people aren't hitting those targets, that's not the biggie. That's not the major issue. You've got to imagine these goals. We're setting monster goals. If you're hitting those goals, they're too small. You're thinking too small. These have got to be goals that you shouldn't be hitting. And they've got to filter back into targets that we're setting everybody else, that we're looking to hit, to be able to take us close to what that monster goal is. We know we've got to do X, Y, and Z to get to that end goal. But that doesn't mean that the only measurement tool that we use with our people is the target itself. Because, of course, before the target is hit, there's a whole swathe of stuff that everybody's got to do, from the manager to the staff to the directors to the managing director, the owner, you, whoever. We've all got to take these baby steps before we actually hit that target. And what are those steps? They're actions, actionable things that people should be doing. To enable me to develop a widget, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, and I've got to do this. If I don't do any one of those, the widget doesn't get made. So measure me on my actions. I mean, it's the common theme. I mean, it's like I talk to my kids about this, and I always say to them, look, I don't measure based on what I'm not taking on board what people say. I look at what people do. I look at what people are doing in their day-to-day roles, in their day-to-day lives and everything else. When I look at mentors and people like that, I say, well, it's all fair and well for people to say this. What are they actually doing in reality, and what's that filter look like? And that comes back to your staff. You can't just measure based on targets. Targets just show you one thing, and it doesn't give you the detail underlying that. So if you're not hitting your targets, what does that mean? What? So what went wrong? Well, Johnny didn't do this, or he didn't do that. At least when you're measuring, you're breaking down each target into actionable steps that to achieve it, a person needs to take. You're mapping this out. There's a roadmap. We call it the goal pathway. You're mapping out the pathway that someone has to follow to be able to stand any chance to be getting there and achieving and hitting those targets. Measure against the actions, not just the targets. That's point number 2 in how to manage teams for success. Then point number 3 is that we want to have a look at activity overall. So in terms of measuring that, what does good look like? What is fantastic and terrific, and what's average and what's poor? So you need to be able to set some kind of scoring methodology around this to actually measure that activity. So now we're measuring action and activity as well as targets. How are we measuring it? How are you using that? What's your yardstick that you're using? And what we tend to do for ourselves and for our clients, we look at a measure of 5. So 5 on that scale is perfect. And let me tell you right now, if people are hitting perfect, then either that person is astounding and shouldn't still be in that job, and they should be promoted immediately. Or number 2, your manager is doing something wrong and they're overscoring people because they know that's going to skew the stats of the team and themselves in what they're doing. So 5 is rare. It's rocking horse shit. It shouldn't be seen all the time. No, can I say that, Jack? I don't know. But I did. It's out there. So it's rare. Not everyone's going to be hearing that. Not everyone's going to be hitting a number 5. But again, if people are hitting a 1 and a 2, it screams to the same problem. Are they being scored too low for, in being overly unjust? But equally, it highlights a problem and a concern. So if you're getting people that are scoring below a 3 and teams that are scoring below a 3, it gives you somewhere to focus and then get down into that micro detail of what's happening. So you need to have that, whether you're using the rule of 5, which is a very easy kind of metric, a matrix to kind of build, but 1 being perfect and 5 being perfect and 1 being really, really poor. And then you've got the bits in the middle. You can build that and measure people on it. At least then you've got a yardstick. So are we saying that, when people haven't hit their targets or actions, is it average? Is it dirt poor? Is it actually above average, but just below hitting the actual target? And what does that look like? Where do we want to be? Where do we want to be? We want to be somewhere between, on that scale, 3 and 5, right? And anywhere below 3 is a problem. And that's something you need to look at. And 5 is probably a problem too, because it shows maybe the measurement's not working. Something's gone wrong. But you need to have a method, a yardstick to actually measure this all on. So just to recap, the first point that we put on there is you've got to be able to have a goal pathway. You've got to have some kind of link back, the baby steps to progress towards the targets, right? And you've got to be able to vocalize that with your staff. The next point is we shouldn't just be measuring on those targets. We should also be measuring on the actions that we're taking to actually get there. And then the third point is, what does that yardstick look like? The yardstick should be, well, what are we actually measuring on? What does good look like and what does bad look like? And how do we get that out there? And then the fourth point that I've got on here is regularity. You need to be not just doing this now and in a month or two's time. You want to be doing this quite regularly. So you want to be measuring this regularly. You want to be having regular one-to-ones. That means monthly. And by the way, anyone scoring below a 3, you should be increasing the intensity of those meetings. You shouldn't be just still keeping them on a monthly regime. Moving forward, put them on a 2-weekly meeting or a weekly one if it suffices, to try and actually get some focus and attention on those actions to move them forward. That's what you need to do. That's your role as a manager, is to manage that team, to actually give it some sense of direction. So you want to have frequency of meeting with your people, so that you're regularly holding them to account, you're regularly giving them help and support and hitting these goals and targets, because there will be problems that will come up. There'll be traffic lights that will go red. There'll be all sorts of things that will happen that will kind of alter course and make things more complicated. Remember, we said it's always going to take more energy and time than we ever think it's going to take to achieve these goals and targets. So there's going to be obstacles. And how do you overcome them? They're going to need your help and support on that. So you need to revisit this. You need to coach. You need to support. You need to work through it on a regular basis. And then on to the fifth point. The fifth point is a really major one for me, because we talk about active and inactive managers. And the clue is there is no such thing as an inactive manager. You only have damagers. That is what those people do. Having somebody in your business who's managing people who is not actually taking action to manage people is a damager, because they will be damaging the business. It means that if you're not measuring these things, if you're not taking these actions, then you could have somebody like I was 7 years ago, sitting in a business, in a role that I had no business being in. I should not have been there. I was actively disengaged. The likelihood is, if you look around your team, 80% of them are going to be disengaged. That's the stats in the UK. 80% of people are disengaged in their work that they're doing. So in order to get them back in, why is engagement so important? Because it's through engagement you increase productivity. It's through increasing your productivity that you can grow your business, that you can grow the customer service that you're giving your customers, that you can make whatever it is you're doing 10x better than what it is right now. So you need engagement. It's important. So if you have managers that aren't doing this, that aren't focusing on this, well, they're not doing their job. It's a big part of their role. It's a sad fact that when people actually start off and they get qualified to do whatever it is they're doing, or they start off at the bottom levels even, that there's no investment in actual management. By default, people will get promoted. The further up that ladder people go, the less they're doing of the actual day-to-day stuff they actually enjoyed maybe in what they were doing, and the more responsibility they have for other people and managing people, basically babysitting staff, the more of that's going to happen. But if you can do that, it sounds mundane, it sounds horrible, babysitting staff, because that's not what anyone wants to do, but you can get massive achievement from that. You can actually make a massive difference in your business. If you're a manager and you're not an owner, you're a manager in a business and you're managing a team, you can make a massive difference to your business. You can make a massive difference to you. And you can actually have a lot of goodwill standing to actually say, look what I'm achieving to get to that next level and get that other promotion. You've got a lot more evidence of what you're doing to be able to show why you warrant that promotion, maybe that pay rise or whatever you're going to get. This is really important. People that don't take that seriously or think this is just a burdensome part, it's not my day job. It is. And those people are going to be damaging the business, because it's not going to be progressive. It's actually, if you're staying still even, you're going back, because everyone else is going to overtake you. But damagers are actively going to be dragging you back. That's the problem. It's pushed under the rug, under the carpet for someone else to deal with. And it's another problem. And these problems take time to manage. So if you don't start now, you're already behind the game plan. So you need to be an active manager. That means that you need to be able to do what needs to be done to manage your team. When you're looking at these stats and someone's got poor stats, someone's got poor actions that they're taking, and it's clearly not working, then it's unlikely that's going to change in the immediate term. And you need to step in and you need to take action on that. You need to confront confrontation. You can't be afraid of confronting people, because if you do, you're going to keep on with the wrong person in the wrong role, in the wrong business, just like I was 7 years ago. And those people are dead wood. They need to be gone. They're poisonous and holding the business back. So if you're not taking action to deal with that, then you're having a huge impact on the business in a negative way. So you need to be an active manager, confront confrontation, and take that forward. So just to recap on that, everyone, we're looking at how to manage teams for success today. Point number one is that you need to make sure that you're setting massive goals, big monster goals, and you're setting targets and achievable steps, baby steps that your individuals and your teams and your departments can take so that they can get you on that journey to hitting those. And you need to be vocal about what they are. You need to tell people what they are and how important they are to achieving that success. The second part is that we need to measure based on not just on targets, but also based on the actions individuals within your teams and teams need to take to be able to hit those targets, those goals that you set. The second part is that we need to measure. We need to develop a measuring stick, a yardstick, as to what good and poor looks like. And once we've got that, we can measure that process and see how we're actually performing in reality. And we need to increase the regularity of how often we're meeting with staff, focus on these processes and the actions that staff are taking. That's step number 4. And step number 5 is we need to make sure that we're active managers, that we're actually taking these steps to manage these problems and support our staff as they need it when they need it. Everyone, it's been wonderful talking for the past few minutes, longer than I was expecting. But we'll be looking to make these regular, a lot more regular. And right now, I have a massive ask that I want to put out to everybody, really. And it's not a major one. It's for you, really. It is for me. It's not for you. But if anything of what I have said has been helpful, if anything that I have said over the past 20 odd minutes has been resonating with you in your role, in your business, maybe even you're an employee in a business and you feel that you're disengaged. If any of this is proving helpful to you, then can you just give us a like, give us a thumbs up, come on and actually engage with us, follow us on our platforms on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We'll be doing a lot more of these. We've got some exciting things that are coming up in terms of training and other services that we're offering that I think would be massively interesting to a lot of people. But this is free. We're doing this live and I'm looking to do this every single week as much as I possibly can. That's my commitment to all of you, even if you're not here and you're not listening and you're watching this back later. So please do me a massive favor. Give me some comments. Give me some feedback. Let us know if there's anything you'd love to hear from us that you'd like to discuss when it comes down to your business and your staff in your business that we can help you with. And we'll look to put that forward too. We'll be putting out some polls as well. I'm just going to quickly, before I go, just check on the chat. So I've got your content is always useful, Mike. Thank you very much, guys. And this is exactly what I'm on about. I really, really appreciate that. I'm doing this to get as much as I can out to everybody. I want to make a difference. We're on a mission to help every business. And yeah, that's ridiculously large. I get that. But every business to have environments that people want to be a part of. I think life is too short for staff to be in a role that they're actually suffering in and in a business that they don't belong in. And it's not their fault. It is totally our fault as business managers because we put them there and keep them there. So I want to make this a better place for you as business owners to get the most out of your staff, but also for your staff to get the most out of the time being with you and the people they're working with. That's our mission. It's massive. I know that's what we're all about here. And we want to make a big difference. So I'm really, really helpful. It's really, really helpful hearing that the content is useful. Let us know if there's anything else that's pertinent to you. Other than that, I will wish you adieu. Have a great Wednesday. And take care, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.